The drive for net zero could cost households £6,000 a year, despite Rishi Sunak ditching or delaying green policies, according to a new report. This is by Civitas. It says the government's current eco-drive will cost £4.5 trillion by the 2050 deadline. Now, the Climate Change Committee previously estimated the price tag to be 1.3 trillion, which is not to be sniffed at, but no, from 1.3 trillion now to 4.5 trillion. And you and me are going to have to pay for this. Now, the question is, what is going on politically? Rishi Sunak seems to be rowing back on net zero. We heard about this new oil field that's been given permission to proceed. The political polls are very volatile indeed at the moment. So joining me now is Ryan Sabey, Deputy Political Editor at The Sun. Ryan, really good to talk to you.
Morning, David.
So the battle for this next general election very much heating up. I was saying earlier to Trevor Kavanagh, I'm beginning to see signs that Rishi Sunak may slightly be listening to his electorate, and maybe, just maybe, he's veering to be towards being a Conservative.
Yeah, that's right. He came back from his summer break and really needed to change things. The party's polling is not particularly good, anywhere between 15 and 20 points behind in the polls, and his own personal opinion ratings also not doing particularly well. So he's had to go on the front foot and decided to be that Conservative, as you say. So he came back from that summer break and changed his mind and tried to slow a few things down on net zero. And just be that Conservative and set out his vision on being that, making decisions for the long term, not making those short-term decisions, and actually telling the British public that some of these decisions that he's going to make are going to be difficult, but it's for that long term.
And just in terms of that, of course, Conservative Party conference, we've had the Lib Dem one, the Conservative one starts on Sunday. A lot of noise is off as well for Rishi Sunak, HS2 being one of them. There's a lot of talk about this spiralling out of control, going up to £100 billion. And just in terms of that, the leg to Manchester may well be cancelled. Rishi Sunak facing a lot of political flack over this, and he really needs to make a decision about what to do and the best way to proceed.
Yeah, that's right. It's absolutely incredible that there'll be a massive vacuum on this decision. He's been asked about it this morning. He's done a series of interviews and not given a particularly straight answer or a clear answer of whether he's going to press ahead with that second leg from Birmingham to Manchester. But I imagine that will come after the party conference, because don't forget, that party conference takes place in Manchester. So it's not going to look particularly good if he goes all the way to Manchester and says, oh, by the way, that train line that several governments and various governments over the last few years have promised, it's not actually going to end up here. It will stop in Birmingham. So I think we can wait for him to get the party conference out the way, which ends middle of next week, and there'll be some sort of decision. There's also some speculation that he will tie that in with the autumn statement that actually takes place in November. So he can give out some bad news on one hand by saying HS2 will not go to Manchester. On the other hand, we'll talk about greater connectivity across the north and give a package in the round. So he can try and claim some political credit from it.
So Trevor Kavanagh was saying that also in terms of the autumn statement, this might be the time that they also ditch the inheritance tax thresholds as well. That would be a sure win, I think, for the Conservatives.
Yeah, that polls extremely, extremely well every single time. It doesn't actually affect that many people, but the concept of it does appeal to people. Now, having spoken to people across government over the last week or so, it seems that the inheritance tax policy is being looked at, but I wouldn't expect to see anything as soon as the autumn statement. You could possibly see something early, maybe in the budget, or talked about in the budget, or an aspiration to change it, possibly in the next manifesto. But nothing on the horizon at the moment, but it's something that Downing Street are certainly interested in. And don't forget that Rishi Sunak, when he was before he actually became an MP, he wrote a lengthy policy paper, and inheritance tax was mentioned. So it's certainly one thing in the back of their mind, and there's something they'd like to do, but nothing quite yet.
And just in terms of his keynote speech, what is going to be the big reveal, do you think?
I think it's going to be. It's one of the things. I think education is a key policy that he's been looking at. Things that have been hinted at over the past week is the shake-up of A levels. He's spoken about the ban or on cigarettes as well. But I think he's basically got to get to the core root of what's affecting the British people, how he's going to deal with the cost of living crisis, how he's going to deal with the migrant crisis. He's got a Supreme Court hearing coming up next month, beginning of October, and he's really got to make sure that he actually gets a solution to that and those flights actually do take off to Rwanda. Otherwise, he really is stuck, and then that opens up a whole new debate on whether he splits the party over whether you leave the European Convention of Human Rights. So there's lots of big issues on the agenda for him, but he set out his stall recently. He wants to make long-term decisions. He's thinking of the long-term, thinking of that legacy, and actually trying to get through to the British public. So when they come to casting their votes next year, they're thinking of Rishi Sunak, brand Rishi Sunak, and actually him getting ahead of beating Labour Party and Keir Starmer.
And how would leaving the ECHR play out in terms of popularity amongst Conservative voters?
I think Conservative voters, I think they want to see the migrant issue sorted, certainly on the illegal migration side of things. But I think Rishi Sunak's got problems closer to home, actually. If he advocates leaving the European Convention of Human Rights, it will split the party. Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, made a speech in Washington this week where it was kind of hinted that it could be a good idea. But I think there will be big problems back at home, back at Westminster behind me, if he even contemplates that. And I think he realises that. So he's got to tread a very, very fine line on this.
I would agree. Ryan, very good to talk to you. That's Ryan Sabey, their Deputy Political Editor at The Sun.